Hey y'all, I'm back again with another quick video, diving more into the prophetics for you guys, the role of the prophet, those in the office of the prophet, and what that mantle is responsible for. So I want to dive into another aspect of, the role of the prophet and their sphere of influence, and in what institutions and aspects of life prophets are needed in. So this video is going to be called The Media and the Prophet. The last one was the government and the prophet. So let me break this down and get right into it. I've hopefully have been providing you all with deep, rich, insightful teachings. And, I did say I would cover the media because I have a background in the media. So I spoke on the importance also in a few videos back. I think the video was what God is uprooting in my life. And I was talking about the things that God was having me to remove or to really just reposition in my life. And one of those things was like social media, to be honest, even what I watch and what I consume via just like the TV and stuff like that, like shows and stuff. I've been watching a lot more documentaries than anything else. And I said the fact that God wants me to guard my gates is why. Your gates is anything that can get into your psyche, what you're listening to, people, music, whatever, what you're watching, shows, videos, what you're consuming through your mouth, whatever can get into you, however it can get into you is a gate. Whatever gate, your reproductive system is a gate, because DNA and information is passed into you and through you when you're having sexual intercourse. So God has been telling me, guard my gates. So that's why I want to speak on this topic, so that you all will be more informed on how to guard your gates, especially prophetically. So I do want to discuss just how prophets are to be on post when it comes to the media. In the prophetic realm, the media falls under the influence that deals with kind of like education and communication. And I'm looking at my notes if you can catch me looking down. So I went to school for mass comm and journalism for my undergraduate program, and I also got my master's degree in communication management. I'm a mass communications professor as well, so I have years of research and experience on the topic of just media relations, public relations, communications, marketing, and journalism. So with that being said, the goal of the media, let's break it down. The media's role in our life is to persuade, to inform, to influence, and to entertain. And when it comes to persuading us and influencing us and informing us, let's say like your local news stations, these news reporters that you watch, anchors and everything, the station itself is supposed to be impartial when it comes to disseminating news. It's supposed to be objective, meaning they're not supposed to take sides. They're supposed to just inform their audiences with information, right? I'm going to break that down as to why that's not always true. So when we think of the media, we have to think about the origins of how we got the news, how we have been placed into like this 24-hour news cycle, where all of this comes from, the entertainment industry, all of that. I want you to keep two words in mind throughout this teaching, and that is programming and propaganda. Now, my dad is 87. He's been around since the days when the TV did not exist in your home. You know what I mean? You might have had a radio or a stereo, but he saw the rise of consumerism when people were buying TVs, and that was like the new technological advancement, right? So back in his day, when the TV first became popular in like every American home in like the 50s, or maybe even a little before that, TV shows weren't called TV shows. They weren't called series, and they didn't have documentaries and stuff. All they called them were programs. To this day, my dad's favorite TV show is Jeopardy, and he watches it every single day, and he says, I have to watch my program. So programming and propaganda. Keep those in mind. So early radio and TV pioneers worked for the government and the military. So our pioneers of our legacy stations, like your CBS and your NBC and your ABC, the pioneers and who really broke the mold with getting us these stations, these channels. They worked for the military and the government, and what they did was they used radios and stuff like that, communication devices and stuff like that in the military, and that paved the way for how we have televisions and radios in our homes now, even in our cars and on our phones. So with that being said, we have to be mindful. We don't like to think this, but that means that to some degree, from the beginning of modern media, the government has controlled the media. And, you know, in my studies and working in the field, the media is usually regulated by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. So we have to be mindful of what role the government plays in the media. Keep that in mind. Recently, we have seen in the world of journalism, journalists and news reporters have been quitting by the droves since COVID. And when I talked a little bit about how the goal of the media is to be kind of impartial and objective and to inform and to persuade and to entertain, many of these journalists have been leaving because in the news reporting space, and the class that I teach is actually a news reporting course, so I talk about like the history of news reporting and everything like that. When it comes to reporting, you have to be objective. Your opinions don't really matter in news reporting. Your voice is not your own, basically. Your station controls the narrative. And this is why we see liberal stations and liberal legacy traditional news outlets and publications, and we see conservative media. Because despite you being your own individual person and how you tell the stories, there is a way that the story gets told based on the outlet. So remember I told you guys to keep programming and propaganda in mind. Well, a lot of how our news is structured, we get a lot of our style of news from propaganda. And when I talk about propaganda, the first thing that comes to mind in my mind, because I'm a history buff, is Nazi Germany, right? So on Netflix, there's a great, it's like a docu-series. It's called Hitler's Circle of Evil. But you guys should watch that, especially if you're big into history. I love World War II history. So Hitler, of course, had his circle of military men, of governmental officials who were like his inner circle, ministers of defense and all of that. So a person who was in his circle ensured that in every German home there was a radio, and we saw a mass production of radios during this time and everything like that in Europe, because the government, Nazi Germany, wanted to control the airways and what German people were listening to on the radio. So one of the people in this docuseries who was in Hitler's inner circle, they ensured that radios were able to be in every German household, and there was a constant playing of Hitler's speeches, anti-Semitic messaging. You guys know with advertising and with marketing, they printed out a lot of flyers at this time in Nazi Germany saying who the problem was, which the Nazis thought it was the Jews. So you would see all sorts of cartoons and all sorts of things, drawings of, you know, and caricatures of racist, Jewish, anti-Semitic messaging, right? So Nazis actually ended up working for the U.S. With the CIA, teaching the CIA methods of mind control. The CIA powers Hollywood to some capacity. So the movies that we watch, it's no coincidence that we watch CIA movies and spy movies and movies about espionage. The CIA backs a lot of these movies. And many CIA members, as well as celebs, you guys know this, they profess Satanism, Scientology, and just all-out devil worship. We've seen people say that in their marriages, you know, to tie their vows or whatever, to tie the knot or whatever, they drink each other's blood. Tom Brady, I think, just made a joke about his wife being a good witch who performs rituals before his games. You guys might see it as a laughing matter, but this stuff is truer than we think. I forgot who the woman's name is who kind of like introduce Hollywood, which she really didn't introduce it. I just think she made it more of a mainstay in Hollywood, like sacrifices and pushing yourself, you know, beyond your limits and doing these rituals, you know, with blood and with these weird parties. I forgot what her name was, but she was like a friend of like all the celebrities, and they all would do these weird parties with cakes and stuff that looked like humans, and they would chop them up and all sorts of stuff. But, you know, we see this influence from the history of the media to now. And a lot of it, I said that the backdrop of the media is very demonic. And I wasn't lying, was I? Based on what I have shared with you all now. And you can do your own deep dive into this stuff. But even children are being exposed to the demonic agendas of the media, the Disneyfication of things like voodoo and the Marine Kingdom. What's the movie? The Prince and the Frog, is that it? The Little Mermaid, the list goes on. It's all programming. So with that being said, prophets have to be on guard to know when the media is lying. They need to find the full truth based on the fragments that the media gives us, because although the media tells us we're telling you the truth, we're giving you the information here, I tell my students you need to take that information and also research it for yourself. So prophets, you know, when watching the media, when consuming the media, we do this for the body. We help to piece together the fragments. Prophets, when it comes to the media, we have to undo the mind control. I see it firsthand. My parents, they sit with the TV on CNN all day, and then they wonder why they're afraid of everything. They wonder why they're afraid of war, why they're afraid of COVID, why they're afraid of this, because it's mind control. Prophets will also be able to use the media to identify key players on the world stage and the truth behind who they are. Now, the good thing about the media is it does give us clues into these things, like Fauci. Everybody was running with everything Fauci had to say. So the media had identified him and exposed him as a key player in the whole COVID thing. Now, if you were smart, you would have done your research on him and looked up old interviews where he has said that he has been waiting for, prior to COVID, years and years before COVID, he was saying that he would love for some sort of pandemic to happen so that the scientific community could study the effects of a pandemic on the world. Years and years later, here comes COVID, you know. So the media helps us to piece together the key players in a lot of things if we're conscious and if we have our prophetic eyes open to see these things. And, you know, don't get me wrong. I think God wants us to enjoy the arts and culture and the amazingness of technology and of the media, you know, but you know, with that being said, we have to be on guard. So don't go and throw your TVs away just because I've shared this teaching with you. But I want you guys to be wise and to understand the demonic mandates behind a lot of institutions, including the media, and what role prophets play to help to uncover this stuff. Also, if you are able to, if it still exists, if it's still out there, look up the documentary Out of the Shadows. Do your own research on everything that I've shared with you. And I will probably drop some scriptures pertaining to this message in the description below. I hope that this blesses you. I hope that this is another video that shows you areas where you need to be on guard, especially if you believe that you are a prophet. And I will see you guys in another video. Bye.